Hello, welcome back to my channel and welcome to another reading vlog where I'm gonna be reading Crossroads of Twilight. So Crossroads of Twilight is book 10 in the Wheel of Time series, which is an epic fantasy series, and I have reading vlogs up in my channel for the 9 previous books that I will link in the description, and I will also link the playlist up there. And the last few books have not been great, so my expectations were not the highest for this one, especially because I think this is the last of the not so great books. But either way, I am still loving the series, so even though my expectations weren't the highest, I'm still wanting to keep reading. And I just also want to say that there are definitely spoilers for what happens in this book in this video. So having said that, let's just get into the vlog. Okay, so I am on page 222, which means I have read about a third of the book. And we started with a 80-page prologue, which is gigantic. And I never know what's gonna be important out of the information we get in the prologue, because it's always just a bunch of random characters chatting. And not random, but not any of the main characters. So I never know what's gonna be important afterwards. But one of the things we learn is that there is tension among the Ajas of the Aes Sedai, which is nothing new. And we also learned that Loyal is looking for Rand and trying to find information about him to know where he is and what he's doing, what is going on, but he doesn't actually get to find him. But also we learned that in the place that he's in, a group of Aes Sedai and Ashemen, including Logain, get to that city. And after that gigantic prologue, we start following Matt, and he is still on the outside of Ebudar, which is where he was running from in the end of last book. And then he learns that Tylin, the queen from Ebudar, was killed by the golem, and she was found dead in her room, where Matt left her tied up so she wouldn't follow him or stop him from leaving. And so Matt feels very guilty because he left her tied up so she couldn't run or defend herself or just do anything. And secondly, he also feels guilty because the golem was after him. So yeah, he feels guilty because basically she died because of him. And honestly, that is pretty much all we get from Matt. And then we start following Perrin. And they are still trying to find Fail and the others who were kidnapped by the Shaido. And Perrin talks to some of the wolves, and they tell him that the last battle is approaching and that they are gonna have to be there, the wolves. And then a few chapters later, we learn that the Dark Hounds, which are creatures from the darkness, from the shadow, are gonna be at the last battle as well, and they are gonna be obviously fighting for the dark side. And we learned that they were basically created from wolves' souls, which might be why the wolves have to be in the last battle as well. And then they learn that the prophet is meeting with Aes Sedai, which doesn't make any sense because he's supposed to hate Aes Sedai because he thinks that Rand is the only person who can actually use the One Power and no one else can. So he is supposed to hate Aes Sedai, so why is he meeting with them? And then they also learn that he's either contacting the Seanchan or the White Cloaks. they are still like in doubt, but then someone finds a document that kind of confirms that he is dealing with the Xianchen, even though the Xianchen are enemies of Rand, and he's supposed to support Rand, like that's his whole thing. He's a fanatic for Rand that has kind of like a cult. So like, what's his deal? And then they find pretty much where the Shaido are, and they learn that there are a lot more of them than they were expecting, and that is, I think, pretty much all we get from Perrin. And so not a lot has been happening, but I'm not mad about it because except for the prologue, we followed my two favorite characters. And even though Matt is like my favorites, I think I liked Perrin's chapters better because even though I'm not in love with what he's doing because I don't care about finding Fail, I obviously understand why he wants to find Fail and the other people there. So I'm not gonna complain about it. But like apart from that, I actually think the conversations they had, like about the wolves and the prophet and the Xianchen and the white cloaks and the Aes Sedai, like the conversations were much more interesting than what happened with Matt. So I actually enjoyed Perrin's chapters a lot more. And yeah, I think I'm liking it more than the previous book, but I still don't have much to say because not a lot has happened and it's still being very slow, even though I think I got through Perrin's chapters fairly quickly, but like I said, because I was enjoying the conversations. But in plot-wise, it's still very slow, and I don't have any more to say right now, and I will update again once I read another third. Okay, so I have read about another third of Crossroads of Twilight, and I am on page 436. And we start by following Fail, and I'm glad that we only had one chapter with her because I just don't like her. And I used to, like when she first appeared in the series, I actually liked her, but then like I got to know her and I really don't like her. But anyway, she's still being held captive by the Shaido, and there's a man there who's called Roland, I want to say, and he kind of helps her, and like he's kind to her, I guess, and he kind of starts flirting with her, and she's like thinking that maybe she should flirt back if that means that he will help with her situation. And yeah, that's pretty much all we get from her. Then we move on to Elaine and Avienda and Brigitte and whoever is there. And we learn that Brigitte is like forgetting her past lives because she's one of the heroes who would be called by the Horn of Valir. And she's forgetting like all the other times she was called and like she lived as the hero. And so like she's forgetting all of that, which is pretty sad. And also she knows that she will never be reunited with like the love of her life because she was like brought back into the world way before she should have. So she is not gonna find him again, and she's afraid that she'll start forgetting about him too. And I really like her, so I'm really sad for her. Still there with them, Elaine makes a deal with the Sea Folk for them to leave some Windfinders in Camelin until Elaine actually gets the throne, and we also learn a little more about like how her situation is trying to get the throne because there are more people claiming the throne. Moving on, we start following Egwene and all the rebel Aes Sedai that are with her, and we learn that there are some of the Aes Sedai who are like willing to negotiate with Elaida to basically like join all the Aes Sedai again. And Egwene's like, the only terms I will accept is for Elaida to resign and just go into exile. And I'm like, yes, queen. And also she like has a thought that, you know, the women from the kin, they can channel, but they were never bound by the oath rod, and they actually live much longer than Aes Sedai. So Egwene is thinking that she will allow Aes Sedai to remove their oaths and just join the kin. And she's sure that that is going to be like a controversial topic among the Aes Sedai, but that is basically like her plan. And the last thing that happens is that the Aes Sedai that Egwene sent to check out what the like large amount of channeling was that they were all feeling, and that we, the readers, know that it was Rand and Nynaeve at the end of the previous book cleansing Sidon. But no one else knows what it was, so she sent some Aes Sedai to check that out. And the last thing that we saw so far was that those Aes Sedai got back and they are gonna tell Egwene what they found, but we don't get to see that, at least not yet. So yeah, still slow, still not a very eventful book, but at least we are still following mostly characters that I like, so I'm not fully mad about it. And for example, in Elaine's chapters, definitely not a lot happened, but at least we got some very interesting discussions about politics and war and just dealing with people in general. And in Egwene's chapters, kind of the same, but I guess we got a bit more information and like a bit more happened. And I especially like when Egwene and Siwan are like talking and scheming, and they are just such a great duo. And yeah, I think that that is everything I have to say. Like, again, I don't have a lot to talk about. I don't really know what the actual plot of this book is. Like, Egwene said she was gonna go to Tar Valon at the end of last book or even before that, and she is still going. And Elaine is still doing her thing, trying to get the throne. Perrin is still trying to get Fail and the others, and Matt is just trying to get out of Ebudar. And yeah, nothing is really moving on, and so I don't have anything else to say, and I will update again once I finish. Okay, so I have finished the book, and I feel like this last third was the section of the book that had more things happening. And the last update we finished with Egwene, and in this one we are starting with Egwene. And I said that the Aes Sedai who went to check what had happened with like all that channeling had gotten back, and they were going to talk to Egwene, and we do get to see what they tell her. And so they tell Egwene that there is a, I think, 3-mile wide like hole where Shadar Logoth used to be, which is the place where Rand and Nynaeve channeled to cleanse Sidon. And they do also tell her that Sidon was used as well as Saidar, so the two parts of the power. And with that information, they assume that the people who were channeling there were the Forsaken, because the Forsaken have men and women, so they assume that they would be the ones like working together to channel that amount of power. And so they know that they are not ready, like they're not strong enough to fight the Forsaken, especially because the Aes Sedai are separated. They're the ones in the tower and the rebels with Egwene. So they're not strong enough to fight the Forsaken. And someone suggests that they should include men in their circles. They form circles of, I think, 13 Aes Sedai to just basically like be a lot stronger. And if they also include men who channel in those circles, they would become obviously even stronger. But that idea is not taken very well by most people. But Egwene says that they will proceed with the idea. However, on the next day, they learned that an Aes Sedai and a warder of their camp was killed with Saladin, like the male half of the One Power. So that decision is kind of shaky. And also, they don't know who used Saladin. Moving on, we get a chapter from the One Tower, and Alviarin, I think her name is, who is was the keeper of the Chronicles. She is part of the Black Aja, and Elaida basically tells Alviarin that she will get proof of her treason, and then with that, Alviarin assumes that she knows that she's part of the Black Aja, and so she calls one of the Forsaken, but that Forsaken comes with a Myrddraal or Fade, and I guess that Myrddraal is like the Dark One was the one talking from like the Myrddraal's body, I think. That's what I understood. And basically the Dark One tells Alviarin that like he tasks her with finding whoever is threatening the Black Aja in the tower. Also still in that chapter in the tower, or maybe it was the next chapter, I don't know, it's still in the tower, another Aes Sedai, who I think is the new keeper, replacing Alviarin, she suggests to some other Aes Sedai that they should start bonding the Ashamen as warders because they would have some sort of control over them, and it should be the Reds, like the Red Aja, who don't even have warders, but they should be the ones bonding the Ashamen because they are used to dealing with men who can channel. Dealing meaning like taking their power away, but in this case they would just bond them, so I guess they would have some sort of control over them. And the other Aes Sedai says that pretty much that is a terrible idea, and Elaida would never accept that. Then we move on to Rand, and we follow him like very briefly. I think it was only one chapter. And Logain gets there, and he has bonded some Aes Sedai like as his warders. And Rand is pissed because he doesn't want to start a war with the White Tower and the Aes Sedai. And so he is definitely not happy with Logain. And he was kind of iconic in that moment, to be honest. And then Loyal also gets there. And I'm just happy to have Loyal around because I love Loyal. He's the most precious character probably in this whole series. And then Rand tells Loyal, Logain, and another man to go talk to the Seanchan because he says that he can't be fighting the Seanchan and the darkness, the shadow, at the same time. And so he wants them to try to make a deal, a truce with the Seanchan. And speaking of making deals with the Seanchan, Perrin is still looking for Fail, and they get to a town that is like sort of very empty and like creepy, eerie, and then they find some people who say that they have like ghosts, the dead are walking, people are like walking through walls, and I'm just like, what is going on? And then he hears of some Seanchan who are also after the Shido, and so he also wants to make a deal with the Seanchan, and I'm not liking the fact that everyone is wanting to make deals with the Seanchan. And speaking of, not exactly making a deal, but still like dealing with the Seanchan, Matt, who is fated to marry Tuan, who is the heir to the throne of the Seanchan, he learned that basically, like, he has named her his wife 3 times in front of people, and if she does the same to him, naming him her husband 3 times in front of witnesses, they will be married. Like, that is literally the marriage ceremony. So, like, what the fuck? Then we get back to Egwene, and she goes on a boat, and she feels someone channeling close to her, behind her, and then she falls into the river. And when she wakes up, she realizes that she was captured by people from the White Tower. But those people from the White Tower, they captured her because they knew exactly where she was going to be, which means someone has betrayed her, but she has no idea who that was. And then we get a very short epilogue, which was a page and a half, where basically Logain, Loyal, and the other guy get back to Rand and tell him that the Seanchan have agreed to talk and they want him to meet the daughter of the Nine Moons, aka Tuan, aka the woman who is fated to marry Matt and is actually with him right now. And that is how it ended, and let's go into my final thoughts. So, as usual, let's start with the characters, especially because it's what I have more to say about because there wasn't a lot of plot. And so, like I have already said, I didn't dislike this book because it followed mostly characters that I like. And so, starting with Matt, who is my favorite character, I am glad he was in the book because 2 books ago, I think, he was just not in the book at all, and that I did not like. And so, I'm really glad he was in the book. However, I didn't really care about his chapters. I feel like nothing relevant really happened to them, and like I have been saying, I believe that everything that is happening might be relevant to the future, but for someone who is reading it for the first time, it does not seem relevant. And the only thing really that I feel like happened in these chapters were him like having sort of conversations with Tuan, but I don't care. Like, I don't care about their sort of relationship, if we can't even call it a relationship because it isn't. The only thing I found interesting was the marriage ceremony, the fact that they only have to name themselves each other's wife or husband 3 times and they will literally be married. I found that interesting because I feel like it will lead to disaster. Moving on to Perrin, who is my second favorite character, I am already so done with the fact that he's still trying to find Fail like we have been trying to find her, I feel like, for 7,000 years, and I don't care. Like I also said, I understand that he wants to find her because he loves her, but I personally don't care. Like, she can die. Honestly, I would rather she died. But having said that, I did like Perrin's chapters more than Matt's because I just liked the conversations more, and some things did happen, like not a lot, but I feel like it had a little more something. Now, Elaine, I still really like Elaine. She's not my favorite, but she is a character that I like, and I did like everything that was said in her chapters. I liked all the discussions that they were having, but just like Perrin, I feel like she has been doing the same thing for so long, which is like trying to get her throne. And again, I get that it obviously takes time, but for the reader is not the most entertaining thing to read about. And so I like her, I liked her chapters, but I want more. Now, Egwene's chapters, I did like more. I feel like her chapters were the ones where we got more plot's development, like the plot moving forward a little, even if not that much. And I do really like her, and I used to hate her, which is crazy, and now I really, really like her, and I am worried about her at the what happened at the end. I am worried about what's gonna happen to her, and yeah, hers were the chapters that I enjoyed the most. Also, there was no Nynaeve in this book. Like, she was mentioned in one of Ren's chapters because she's with him, but she wasn't there. Like, she didn't speak, which I appreciate because every time she speaks, I want to murder her. So I definitely like that she was not present. And also Ren's, he was in the book, but not a lot. It was like 3 or 4 chapters of him. And even though in the previous book I started kind of liking him again, he's definitely not one of my favorite characters. So again, I don't mind that he wasn't that much present in the book. So in terms of the plot, like I have said, it was slow. There wasn't a lot that I thought relevant going on, and the ending wasn't as strong as the endings of these books are. Like, there was always something huge happening, like either a huge fight scene or like huge reveal or just something huge that will impact the world, the plot, just, something big. And in this case, we did get Egwene being captured by the White Tower, but, that was it. It wasn't the, big thing I was expecting. So this was probably my least favorite ending in the series. Because, for the previous book, I did not enjoy the book, but the ending was really, really good. And for this one, I did enjoy the book more, but the ending I thought was not that great. But overall, I did like this one more than the previous one, and I am giving it 3 stars. And like I said in the intro, I'm pretty sure that this book is the last one of the ones that most people agree are not that great. So the next one, things are probably gonna be really good again, and I am so excited to start book 11. But anyway, this is everything for this week's video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, give it a like and subscribe, and I will talk to you next time. Bye!